All right. Gotta wait for a couple green check marks here. And still waiting on one. And spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. There we go. We're good to go.
All right, folks. Welcome in. Welcome in. It is 6:02 Mountain Time. I still got to switch the computer to this one now that I'm out here in Mountain Time myself. And it's time for an episode of Building the Broncos for Breakfast. Carl had a last-second family emergency situation thing, so well wishes to him as always with everything going on. And I got Eric as well, which this is great because I can't be there tomorrow morning. My wife's starting her first day of work, and we haven't worked out the time with everything yet. We're still waiting on all our stuff. It's still probably going to be another week, I hope, at this point. Like if it's a week, I'll just take it at this point. But we're here, and it's great, Eric, because typically we have a chance to talk about the game Monday morning, a gut reaction, if you will, or, the digestion from the morning, how we're feeling after that. Not as emotional as the gut reaction, if you will, but here we are. It's not exactly, the morning reaction, but we had a chance to sleep on last night's outright utterly dominating win against the Cincinnati Bengals, and Denver's 2-2 with all their hopes and aspirations still in front of them. So obviously, I don't really have too many criticisms. We'll get into some, I'm sure, but mostly good vibes right now. And it's kind of hard not to have good vibes. It felt like they said in the announcing crews, I always use this analogy too, but like when Iowa plays South Dakota, maybe Iowa's not the best example because they don't score enough points, but like when Ohio State plays somebody like not even like Mac, like lower than Mac. That's what it felt like yesterday. So I come away that game excited about the Broncos and like everything going well, but like also like embarrassed for Cincinnati. Like that was an embarrassing display from them.
Yeah, and they are a prime example of why you need an offensive line around your quarterback, because not only is Joe Burrow hurt, but Jake Browning, not a great quarterback, but there was only so much he can do. And they had the weapons, but the weapons weren't able to be utilized. And there were missed opportunities. There were plays where Jamar Chase was open and T. Higgins were open that Browning just didn't have the time or the ability to get them the ball or place the ball properly. So it definitely was a very outclassing of talent for the Broncos against the Bengals, which we haven't been able to say a whole lot about the Broncos so far this season. We kind of touched on it a little bit with the Titans, but the Broncos did enough shooting themselves in the foot to keep that game close. And fortunately, I don't know if you caught it. Fortunately, they didn't do what the example of the Jets quote. We shoot ourselves in the foot and come back only to shoot ourselves in the head. Fortunately, they didn't do that against the Bengals, and they were able to win convincingly, which was needed. This was a game that they just needed it so bad to get things going right in the locker room. And it was another game too where the usual culprits of being bad for the most part actually had a good game.
Yeah, we got Papa Bear coming in here. Good evening, Broncos country, 11-6 plus. Let's go, Bo. Buckham 3 times, Denver Broncos for life, and MHH for life. Yeah, no, it was great to see that. 11-6, I think, is certainly in the realm of possibility. And we'll have a chance to like marinate on. I won't be here tomorrow morning because, again, first day of work and getting the schedule. But next week is a measuring stick game. Like this one, get right game, felt like a get right game. Now the Eagles coming up, I don't think they're not impervious by any means. They're not infallible. Is that the right word? Jalen Hurts can have some bad games, especially, but they have the offensive line, defensive line, tackling. That'll be a tough task for the Broncos before they hop on a jet and head over to London before coming back to Denver. So they have a real chance to shake the cage of the NFL and say, like, no, we are for real. Those 2 last-second losses, that's the NFL. It's going to happen sometimes, but we just went on the road and beat the defending undefeated Super Bowl champions. Don't expect it to happen. I would imagine the spread's probably going to be 6.5. I haven't seen what the early numbers are on that. But if Denver plays like they did in this game, they'll have a chance. They're going to have to clean up some stuff, though. Not cleaning anything up. Never. We don't need it to. Diamond Rattler says, I won. We always win. F the haters. Love it. I hope that sometimes we get called haters. Says, boom, thank you guys. Good to see you, Diamond Rattler. Unless he won a raffle. If that's what's going on here or anything like that. He said, I won. So congrats, Diamond Rattler. And thank you for coming in here and hanging out with us. We really do appreciate you. And you've been with us for a long time. So it's always great to hear from you and see ya. So yeah, Philly 3.5 right now. Oh man, that's a closer spread than I thought. Thank you, Mr. Producer. But yeah, overall, Eric, pretty good vibes from this Broncos game. Bo Nix played a lot better, and the defense, the stat that blows my mind, Cincinnati didn't cross midfield after the first drive. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? That's unbelievable. And then the run game. I mean, that's what really got me feeling much better about this game. It's something that we haven't really seen from this Broncos team. The run game showed up, and despite 42 pass attempts, which almost felt like too many for Bo Nix, unless you're using it to get him confident and get reps, they could have leaned on the run game even more, and I would have been happy.
Yeah, the final numbers for it are a little bit misleading with 42 passing attempts, 38. It seems balanced, but going into the final two drives, the Broncos were only at 26 rushing attempts. There was a couple drives where they were pretty pass dominant. I'm not including the end of the first half one where obviously you're trying to score quickly, move the ball downfield. So you can still be more balanced to where you're not getting to that balance by just running out the clock late in the game. That's one thing I would like to see, especially with how effective this run game was. Hat tip to J.K. Dobbins. I feel like Monday morning we talked about how he's been so boomer bust this season, like the 10 plus or 7+ yard runs and all that, and then the nothings. And this one was, he had very few runs that he wasn't picking up at least 3 or 4 yards.
Huge.
And just a great game for him. A great game for a lot of players on offense. You mentioned Bo Nix. One of the big things about him was he settled down the footwork a lot. There were still throws where he, can reset his feet and make the throw, but it wasn't almost every single throw like it had been since the start for the first 3 weeks. There's still some chemistry and trust issues there with Evan Ingram that you can see with some timing issues. But man, do him and Cortland Sutton have the chemistry down. And there were 3 or 4 passes where Bo Nix was throwing to a spot and trusted Cortland Sutton to not only get enough separation or get in position, but trusted Cortland Sutton to go make the play happen just by throwing it to a spot. And that's obviously, you want your quarterback to have that kind of trust in your top receiver. And it was great to see, especially with how effective it was. And with Cortland Sutton against a pretty solid secondary in terms of the corners for the Bengals, at least.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Sutton's been awesome. Him and Riley Moss, I feel like, have been the most confusingly maligned players from the fan base for me. Because is Sutton, Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, AJ Brown going for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in a game? I don't think he's that guy, but is he a top 20 wide receiver? Low end wide receiver 1? Yes. You can go back months and months, years, and I've been on that. We did that super chat. Sorry, I hadn't gotten to it just yet. $2 about Luke Wattenberg from Cody W. Yeah, Wattenberg, there were some negatives from the game. Thank you, Cody W, so much for the super chat. There were some negatives. Wattenberg was definitely a negative. Now, he's an okay pass protector. He moves well in the screen game, relatively. But man, he is at the point of attack, not very good. And when you're having that with the penalties, it's not enough. So Wattenberg, definitely a black mark on the offensive line and really has hurt them. Luckily, JK and the rest of the offensive line showed up, and the tight ends showed up as well. Welcome back, Nate Atkins. It was great to have you. But yeah, Wattenberg, not good enough. I don't know if we're messing with the chemistry of the offensive line a drive away from switching with Forsyth, but he's not been very good there. And with how the run game has been so boomer bust and how Forsyth, at least in my perspective, Eric, a better run blocker, maybe something the Broncos consider at some point if the penalties are even close to this level.
Not just that, what kept Wattenberg the starter throughout last year, even though there was issues with the run game with him, was he was at least doing a good job in pass protection. That hasn't been the case this year. I mean, the numbers aren't astronomically bad, but centers, they don't typically take a lot of 1v1s and they're helping out on double teams and everything like that. And he's not doing good there. So it's kind of pushing towards Alex Forsyth finally getting in there. Hopefully that improves the run game. Obviously, it's not going to be this week. You're not going to do it on a short week when you're having to travel to Philadelphia to take on the reigning Super Bowl champions. It's not going to happen. You're probably going to be looking at after probably the Giants game, so we're probably stuck with it a few more weeks of Luke Wattenberg and giving him a chance to kind of bounce back because, it's been a rough start to the season, but it's not like it's been a great offensive line unit throughout the whole, the first 4 weeks until now. I mean, Quinn Miners, he was really struggling. I mean, he was probably not much better than Wattenberg over the first 3 weeks. He really stepped up. Garrett Bowles has been one of the best left tackles so far this season. Mike McGlinchey really struggled. Ben Powers has been solid, but so it hasn't been a great offensive line unit. So you're just trying to keep hoping that things click for them as a unit. So you want to sit by and not, make any drastic changes like benching a starter. Although I would have prior to this game because of the condition of the Bengals and the way that their defensive line is. I would have made the switch prior to this game and used this game to help build that chemistry with Alex Forsythe at the center. But at this point, we're probably waiting a little bit. And man, Luke Wattenberg, not just the penalties, like he was just bad overall. It was just a really terrible game from him. And that's excluding the penalties.
Yeah, I felt bad for him. I mean, watching the game at the end after some of those penalties, they just zooming in on him in his face. I mean, he just, overmatched and befuddled in that one. So got to be better from him, but we don't want to stick too long on the negatives, of course, because this Broncos had an absolute butt whipping of the Bengals. That version of the Bengals is probably the worst team in football, but Denver should have beat them by more. I mean, honestly, they probably should have. They could have put up 40 if they wanted to. So pretty good game again. Bo Nix really want to give a shout out, but my happiest takeaway from this one is the run game. Seeing it come together now. Everything starts with the offensive line, but the auxiliary pieces matter as well. Seeing not just J.K. Dobbins, which the title today, J.K. Dobbins getting hot. Thank goodness, kind of playing that Mark Ingram role for this offense. But you're seeing motion start to get utilized in the offense as well. I heard a stat from Robert Mays that the Broncos were used, I think, the highest rate of motion in the Sean Payton Denver era in this game. And it's something that Broncos have done a good job with. I don't necessarily want to say a good job, but there's a correlation to using a lot of different personnel with the successful offenses. And the other factor had been a lot of pre-snap motion. And Sean Payton's offenses in Denver had been some of the most pre-snap stagnant offenses in football. Changed a little bit with this Bengals game. They're getting some free releases, getting some guys some head starts, if you will, with some targets over the middle of the field, which Nix had struggled with a little bit through the first 3 weeks. So that was great to see. And then also the utilization of it with Mims in the run game. So part of that as well being utilized. So it's not just Dobbins for me. It's also Mims, minorly, but still there. And then, of course, I don't want to say welcome Harvey, but like first touchdown, almost 100 yards, looking potentially dangerous out in space in the pass game as well, getting out there. Like I think it's just a matter of time for him there. So feeling really good about that. Now, granted, one game Bengals, I know, but I'm feeling a little bit more confident in them. So they got to be feeling that too.
Yeah, with motion, that actually raises a good point. And Lance and I actually talked about it a little bit last Friday night. NFL defenses are starting to adapt to motions where they'll motion like it's man and still drop into zone. So I'm wondering if it's some of that is playing into the lack of motion from Denver. Obviously, it's not the full story because Sean Payton has never really been a big motion guy in the first place. I mean, that's obvious if this was his highest rate. And I'm not saying that motion's not effective. Motion shouldn't be used, but it is funny to see Todd Bowles is doing it. Vic Fangio is doing it. So I'm really curious about it with this one, where they're just showing man and then they still drop into zone, or they show it zone and then drop into man. They're just making those adaptations to just bait quarterbacks a little bit with that pre-snap read. That motion's supposed to help the quarterback figure out and give them an idea if it's man or zone. And then on that is, you talked about the pieces around it. The wide receiver blocking in this game was good for the most part. There were a couple issues that here and there from both Pat Bryant and Trent Sherfield, but they did a good job overall. And then blocking from the tight end position, as somebody who's absolutely hounded Adam Troutman for his blocking ability, he actually played a pretty good game. And Nate Atkins, it is so good to have him back because he is far and away the best blocker in the room. And he's not a great one. There's plenty of areas where he can improve on, but he was a major difference for getting this run game going in this one, because he made on multiple big runs, he made the critical key block to spring the running back. So just the infrastructure around the running backs was so much better in this one, and hopefully they can keep it up, because the Eagles, they're not the best run defense. Like that's probably where they're most susceptible on defense, is to the running game.
Yeah, I've not watched too much of the Eagles so far this season. Do you know they have some big bodies on the interior, with Carter and Davis? Davis has been a little bit of a disappointment there. I don't know if he's been playing better. I know entering the season, not really a first-round pick kind of guy, but yeah, the offense looked pretty good. The biggest complaint I have about the offense is that they just got to quit with the penalties. And I know a lot of that was Wattenberg in this one. But coming into this game, we talked about, winning the turnover battle and not committing penalties and just doing those two things, and you should win this easily. Denver wins it easily, but doesn't do those two things. Now, I put out a tweet today, and people were right to push back against it. I was like, oh, that bad turnover. It was 4th down. So, if nobody was open, you're going to lose it anyway. Got to chuck it up and hope something happens. Although granted, turnover on the giving them the ball on the, 1 or 2 versus the 20, that's with your defense in the pass rush. That's a big difference. But still, the turnovers, Denver's defense didn't take it away more than Denver lost it. And still, penalties just way too much on offense. The other thing that has not been so much of an issue this year, Eric, that popped up a bit, I think the drops. I hadn't really felt like the pass catchers had let down Bo Nix too much so far this season. And this one, despite his 326 yards, it could have been much more because there were some drops that should not have occurred.
Yeah, the interception, it's not a super big deal because of the situation it was being 4th down. Doesn't change the fact that it was just a bad read and a bad play by Bo Nix. Had you gone for it, I think when watching that play over today and spending a few minutes watching it over, he should have tucked it and tried to run it. He had no business making that throw. If you tuck it and run it, he's probably picking up at least the 1st down because it wasn't goal to go. There was a yardage there where he could still pick up the 1st down. He's probably getting that, if not the touchdown. So I just question the decision with how the coverage broke down of him throwing it, not running with it. But it is what it is, and he more than made up for it. And the defense, I mean, it stinks that it was, again, brought out to the 20 and not, right on the 1 where you probably could have gotten a safety out of it. But the defense still made the most out of it. But yeah, the drops, that was a big issue with this one. And I mean, Evan Ingram had 1, Troy Franklin had 2. I do got to say, one of those drops by Troy Franklin wasn't the best placed throw, but it was still a very catchable ball that Troy Franklin should have caught. I'm glad they didn't mark RJ Harvey down for a drop because I remember the announcers throughout the game, they're like, oh, that's a drop from Harvey. And they said it a few times. It was off his fingertips and he was trying to reach for it. Not the best throw down the seam from Bo Nix, but drops, you cannot have that. It's one of those things, one of those ways that we just shoot yourselves in the foot. It's missed opportunities, especially with the 2 to Franklin. Both of those were big plays, and it just leaves it on there. Fortunately, they were able to bounce back and not have it, be a major detriment to the drives, and they're able to overcome it. But against a team like the Eagles, you don't get that benefit. And so it's crucial that they eliminate those drops coming into this game.
Yeah. You're not going to be – Denver wins this game going away against the Bengals, but need to win the turnover battle, need to still clean up penalties. It's going to be hard to win otherwise. Cody W. coming in again. Thank you. 2 super chats. He says, watching Troutman catch and get 22 yards was nice. The catch 22 there. But I just kept thinking that we could have been Ingram catching the ball and he would have been gone. I think that was the one that Bo Nix made a heck of a play on it. He was running to the right and threw it off balance, and then Troutman was coming across. Yeah. Ingram, I don't know if he gets the same personnel out there or if you're trying to sell a run. I don't remember if it was a play action look necessarily. Would it have been nice if it was a little bit more athletic player there than Troutman catching it? Yeah, but you got the 1st down plus, so it worked. I don't have any criticism, but I hope at some point we start to see Ingram in here. That was a player I was excited about. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, not crazy because we're wrong about stuff all the time, but J.K. Dobbins was the one I was probably least excited about. And right now, I'd probably take Hufanga more because running back's going to get the ball, but I think Hufanga more valuable overall, but Dobbins has been definitely more important than Ingram has to this point. And of course, Dre Greenlaw, if we end up seeing him. But yeah, no, Troutman, good bounce back game and really happy to see Atkins back out there. He did get dinged up at some point. I'm hoping that's not something that we see him on the injury report causing any issues because he's the only one who can block like he can and be utilized in different spots as a blocker as well. That changes how Peyton can play tight formation, 21, 12, 22, any of that stuff. So good to have him. Kind of a fringe player, on the outskirts. Not a lot of people probably like Nate Atkins, but he's really important for what the Broncos want to do because they don't have another guy who can do what he does.
Yeah, and I believe Nate Atkins left the game and then he came back in. I believe he was only out for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Adam Troutman, that was a good play by him and a great play by Bo Nix to get him the ball. And it is an issue. Like, obviously you want those plays with the tight end catching it with space. You want Evan Ingram to be that guy, but the personnel package wasn't for Evan Ingram. And it stinks because this is kind of the limitations that, if I remember right, you and I touched on a little bit there when Ingram was possibly being brought in, that you're a little bit more limited with what you can do with Ingram because he doesn't offer much inline ability because he just doesn't have that blocking to be a threat. Teams know that they're either going to blow through him to make a play on the ball or it's going to be a passing play. So he doesn't bring that threat to it. So that's just limiting with what you can do for him. And again, as I mentioned just a little bit ago, it is very clear that the chemistry and trust between Bo Nix and Evan Ingram's not there. There were 3 plays where Bo Nix was late to target Evan Ingram and just didn't put it in get it to him in time for Ingram to turn it upfield and make a play. And so in that situation, it's impossible to say. Evan Ingram wasn't out there. We can't say for sure, but I am not sure Bo Nix makes the same. I don't want to say it makes the same throw. I'm not sure he makes the same decision if you replace Adam Trotman on that play with Evan Ingram, just because that trust and chemistry is not there, and he's has built it up a little bit with Adam Trotman.
Yeah, no doubt. A few more guys I did want to highlight on the offense. We did touch a little bit, but Marvin Mims, wide receiver, stock up, and just an offensive player. Really good to see him bring in that hole shot. I think it was in that last drive in the first half, end of the second quarter. He had some good plays. I think he's looking more comfortable as a receiver. I still think it's probably 2A, 2B with him and Troy Franklin, but yeah, Mims is getting more involved there. I did want to say though, I did not have the sound on when this happened. I feel like he did get a little bit bailed out with that punt interference to the point where like don't even make that a thing, like catch it cleanly. Don't give him a chance. Now we're on watch for punt catch yips with Mims, who's obviously a still good returner, but now that's 2 in 4 games where it's been like not doing it cleanly. Even if he didn't like drop it, the fact that he bobbled it like he did. So keeping an eye out for that one as well. So don't love that. You cannot, especially going against the Eagles or where you want to go, division champs plus. You can't be having special teams miscues like that.
Yeah, and one of the things I wrote today when I wrote up my grades was if Mims is going to continue to struggle on special teams as he has, because even when he has caught the ball cleanly, hasn't been the best with how he's seeing it. Not like he has been the last 2 years where he's been an All-Pro. He's just missing lanes, it seems like, and just something seems off with him. And on kickoff returns, maybe it's just the other rule changes they made. Not sure, but punt returns, there's really no excuse for it. So if he's not stepping up on special teams like we're used to, we need him to step up on offense. And at least in this game, he has really, found that groove as a gadget player for this offense. And Sean Payton, I think the first couple games, there was a reluctance to continue to use him as such. We didn't see the same things out of him, the same usage. And I think it was just trying to force him to be more of a prototypical wide receiver, which Sean Payton, he kind of touched on that in August, not long into training camp, about getting Marvin Mims to be less of a gadget and be more of a traditional receiver. So that's probably why. But Marvin Mims, he is good at the way he's used. He may never be a more traditional wide receiver, but a gadget player, if he remains being effective and can bounce back and be that threat on special teams, he can be a great NFL player in those specific roles.
Yeah, I didn't really have too much more to touch on offense other than it was awesome to see. I think kind of already did, but I did want to finish with Dobbins is the bell cow. And also let me know if I need to go shut the door here if you hear any kids screaming. It's kind of loud. We don't have any furniture in the house, so it's just really boomy up the stairwell. I kept it open because cat litter box over there. So sorry, cat, you're going to have to hold it if it's too loud. But I didn't want to come back to RJ Harvey. Just really excited to see him get more involved because the explosiveness out of the backfield. One of our critiques about Bo Nix has been a little quick to get to the check down sometimes. And last season, that felt a little DOA. Like, at least you're giving him a chance. But with McLaughlin and Jaleel Williams, how he looked, Javonte Williams. Yep. Yeah. As soon as I'm like, that's wrong. And Javonte Williams, it was kind of DOA a lot of times. But Harvey can bring a different element. And we kind of saw glimpses of that. Now, I don't know if he has like truly like crazy open field speed to get away from guys like you've seen some like the true elite upper echelon speed backs in the game, but good vision, pacing, built low to the ground. Like he's the pacing of his feet are awesome. So I'm excited to see that become more a part of the offense as well. I've been waiting for one of these top 100 picks from the Broncos to give me something to be excited about. Harvey got me a little excited in this one. Now, again, Dobbins should be being fed now, but I'm excited for Harvey as well. I want them both fed. And honestly, 42 pass attempts for Bo Nix. I think they're treating it a little bit like scrimmage at the end, getting some confidence, working some stuff in. It could have been 28 pass attempts in this one, and I would have been happy as a pig in mud.
Yeah, Harvey has that speed, has that more of that quickness, and he has that speed, but we haven't had a chance to really see it in the open field because he's got to get his lower half at times can move out of sync. And I'm not sure how else to put that. And it leads to these plays where he's pretty easily brought down. You see him kind of, try to make a jump cut and, his legs get swiped out from underneath him. So you got to figure that out, but it's one step at a time with him. He's gotten so close multiple times against the Bengals. He had that one big run against the Titans. That's probably the closest to the true open field speed we got to see out of him. So he's still adapting to it and still getting there, but it was nice to see his involvement in the passing game. And one thing too, and this is credit for Sean Payton, I love what they did with the running back rotation in general in this one, because they went from, one play on a series, it's Dobbins, and it's Harvey, then it's Dobbins, Harvey, to where it was series by series. This is Dobbins series, then it's Harvey series. And if you're going to get your running backs into a rhythm, which we always talk about quarterbacks on rhythm, same thing applies to running backs. Well, you can't sit there and pull them from every other play. You got to give them multiple plays, give them the series. And it was nice to see that Sean Payton not only did that it worked out so well for them and should be the standard going forward with their usage.
Yeah, we got Michael Ronquillo saying hello after my dog just said hello as well. There he is again. Good evening, Nick and Eric. I'm building the Broncos. Go Bo Broncos. Good to see you. And Eric, I'm going to give you the floor here as I turn off my camera for a second and get the dog out and shut the door because it's bath time here. We got a new time zone, so routines off here as well. So first night show being out in mountain time. So going to turn off the camera for a second. I'll be right back. But the offense, we're feeling good about that. There's no doubt the star was the defense.
Yeah. Defensively, I would say that there was a lot of concern over that first drive where the defense just wasn't able to do anything. This was an offensive line where the Broncos defensive front should have dominated, and it was slow, but they got there. After the first drive, they had one snap in Denver territory, but it was a penalty and didn't count. So Denver did a great job of shutting them down, keeping them out from crossing the half-yard mark or the 50-yard line. The defensive front, they were so good in a lot of things. Obviously, the pass rush was there. It was a little bit disappointing seeing Zack Allen kind of be MIA almost in this game. DJ Jones did well. But one thing that was a little bit concerning with his defense, just to get it out of the way, there were some issues against the run. There were some communication errors, it seemed like, where the linebackers and defensive line were out of sync of gaps. And there was a couple plays where you can see Alex Singleton after the play going and talking to DJ Jones or Zack Allen or Justin Strnad. Some miscommunication there on a few times that you got to get wrinkled out, because the Philadelphia Eagles, they will absolutely destroy you if you have those kind of errors, as well as a couple missed opportunities. Missed tackles were still an issue. And even though Singleton, this was his best game so far by the season, and it was actually a really good game from him, there are still a lot of issues with this game that is going to be even more exploitable for the Eagles. But the defensive front, they did well, but the play against the run should still be a cause of concern.
Yeah, I'm going to push back a little bit on the Zack Allen front, just because, and again, I haven't watched the All-22 or anything yet, but on the John Franklin Myers sack, John Franklin Myers one-on-one, 3 blockers on Zack Allen, get hands on him. The one where it was Jonathan Cooper and Nick Benito, great get off. They only rushed 3, 4 blockers on Zack Allen. The play after the John Franklin Myers sack, 3 blockers on Zack Allen. So some of that is scheming with where guys
it was all scheming,
and the offensive line of the Bengals being terrible, but they identified 99 as a guy that we have to at least get hands on him, because he was getting doubled a lot in this game. Now would it be good to see him knife through and did a little bit more pressure to sack? I think another one, I don't know if it was a sack or not, but he's the one who caused Browning to run forward into pressure, getting off his spot. So again, not necessarily getting the hits Definitely some pressures there, but as far as impact go, I mean, especially some of the big splash plays, specifically from the pass rush, you go back and watch, and it's like, oh my gosh, how many bodies do you actually need on Zack Allen, especially with how Benito and Cooper and Franklin and Ellis have been playing. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Zack Allen there, because it's when you go back and watch it, not that you haven't watched it, and I'm sure there's other tape, like maybe the run defense or something, but I noticed there's a lot of plays where it's like, oh, he didn't get it, but like every single Bengal player was blocking him.
Yeah, on those ones where he was getting a lot of triple teams, that one Cooper and Benito sack, that was scheme. The Broncos had the linebackers mugging the A gap, and they had the interior offensive line collapsing in and leaving it, drew the one-on-ones on Cooper on Benito. And that was the case with a lot of plays where his impact in the passing game was designed by a scheme to, again, collapse the offensive line interior, leaving your edges on one-on-ones. The biggest issue with Allen's game, though, did come against the run. He was one of those big ones where it seemed like he was not hitting the right lane, where, I mean, he's a gap and a halfing. That's the standard in the scheme. And it seemed like that he was not doing the half gap in the right spot. It just seemed like he was just always out of place. Jalen Rivers did a really good job of moving him quite a bit in the running game. So MIA, that may be a bit extreme because he still had an impact, but for the positives that he had in the passing game, he had the same amount, if not more, negatives in the running game for it. And to be clear, he wasn't a bad player. He did not have a bad game, just to be clear. Yeah. He was he was my lowest graded defender, but he was still over 50. Every player starts with 50, so above 50 is a solid game. It's at least average. And so it was a great game by everyone on the defense. He just happened to be the worst, and you just want, when you have the matchup as favorable for Allen as this was, when he did get those one-on-ones that he did get, you want to see him make the impact and actually be part of the play, and not just have the impact where it looks like he's drawing attention, but it was more scheme made than him.
Yeah, well, I thought, again, a little credit to him for that one. And again, some of it's scheme, but it also is because he's a good player, right? So I think that's part of it. Have to talk about PS2. I know that Browning is we don't need to hear from you, Angela. Goodness. PS2 shutting down Chase again. Now, Chase, there were some plays where he was getting open and whatnot, and Browning in the pass rush, the offensive line made it not happen, but the stats are the stats on this one. And Surtain, again, his best game of the season, some of the trail technique stuff, he was on number one, like fly on you-know-what. And I've been loving that matchup in the NFL. I know that Chase went off against him when LSU Bama, that really incredible game. I think it was at Tuscaloosa, whenever it would have been Chase's sophomore season, I think, because he didn't play his junior year. So whatever draft that was, it was incredible. Yeah, no, that was amazing game from Surtain. Shout out to him, and good game from Riley Moss as well after the first two drives. But even still, pass interference, you don't love that. That first catch, like down the sideline, it's one that we've talked about a lot, but like T. Higgins is like a gross exaggeration of like the deficiencies and issues there. Yeah. Moss doesn't have the most length, and he can be in a good position, doesn't tend to get his hand on it all the time. You'd hope so. Some of that's bad luck as well. That one, I don't know if there's much of anything he could have done to stop Higgins, one of the best jump ball players in Browning. Not a good quarterback. Good throw on that one.
Yeah.
Sometimes you tip your cap.
Yeah, and with Patrick Surtain, you talk about how there was missed opportunities with Jamar Chase, and I mentioned that earlier. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. Every quarterback has missed opportunities. Receivers get open and they miss them for one reason or another. Yeah. And doesn't always pressure. Sometimes they just see an earlier, easier throw to make, and they take it. And just getting the ball out, taking what the defense gives you. There's a lot that goes into it. So in even games last year, during some of the best games Surtain had, there were still games where this guy was getting open, just not getting thrown the ball. That happened against Chase. It's going to happen. But you're still making it to where you're not being targeted as much. And as for Riley Moss, he's got to figure that out, because I believe he is now the most targeted corner in the NFL. Entering the week, I know he was in second behind only by one target to one of the Detroit Lions corners. I can't remember which one. So you got to figure something out there. And it's good chance that teams are looking his way, not only because of Patrick Surtain, but because they know that, the 8th percentile arm length They know that even if he's in good position, he may not be able to challenge the catch point because he just doesn't have the length to do it. And then with T. Higgins, that is such an unfavorable matchup for Moss. It is such an advantage to the Bengals just because he's the one to do it. And you don't have another option. You're not going to put Zade Barron on him. You're not going to put Jaquan McMillan on him. Neither one of them are going to do any better against T. Higgins than Moss's. They have the same issues, if not even more, because their arm length, I believe both of their arm length is a little bit better than Riley Moss, but they're both shorter, which still makes it harder to, when he jumps up and gets it, makes it harder to go after it. So hat tip to both the corners. This was a great game for them against, in my opinion, the toughest wide receiver matchup duo for these two corners on the season. They still have a couple tough ones coming in. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are not easy, but you do not have, a top 3 wide receiver in Chase on the schedule with, the best number 2 wide receiver in the NFL opposite him on the schedule again. So hat tip for them for stepping up in this game. And would it have been different with Joe Burrows in there? Possibly. Can't say for sure, but they did what they did, and they did what they could do, and you can only play who's out there on the field, right? So
it would have taken some serious magic for Joe Burrow to have won that game, given how the Bengals defense was playing and how the offensive line was playing. Not saying it's not possible when you have a quarterback like that. I mean, that's kind of what happened with the Chargers game last week. I mean, it took a quarterback playing an S-tier game, and sometimes that happens. So in this league. So great game from Denver. Really the only complaints I have, I mean, I guess I have 2 thoughts on it. Like we talked a little bit about the special teams. I'm just nitpicking. Like we're on watch for Mims. The other stuff was fine. Penalties need to be cleaned up for sure. And the other one is, this is me hoping for best. This Denver defense has shown really good. Now, granted, they've been giving up a lot of yards, but that didn't happen so much in this game. And you know what? If they can get the negative plays, I'm okay with living with a few yardage given up, as long as the red zone defense is as it has been. And the red zone defense has been unfreaking believable. I've been busy. I'm not just scrolling Twitter. I don't know if people are banging the drum enough about how good the red zone defense has been. Now, granted, small sample size, but like the other teams have been moving the ball, which is frustrating, but like they're not really getting touchdowns all that often. So unless it's like, explosive play, they're coming out there. Maybe the only red zone touchdown they've given up this year was that crazy Herbert one. I'd have to go back and look at the numbers. But the red zone defense, I think, has been phenomenal, anecdotally. Defense to go to the next level, though, really would like to see them start making some plays on the football, taking the ball away. Now, when you see, like, turnovers are volatile, and you can't really predict them in the past, and the sample size is so small right now that when you look at, like, the EPA charts, the defenses that are above the Broncos have had, like, some crazy turnover games. Like, if you had a pick 6 or anything like that, that's a huge EPA swing, you're going to be higher with a small sample size. When you get rid of the turnovers, it's a little bit more indicative of the sample and predictive as well. Denver's as high as anybody when you get rid of that. But that's something this team needs to be striving for. That's the note of a great defense. You can be good. Denver looks like they're very good right now. To be great, I think they have to start dictating and taking the ball away a little bit more. Maybe that's part of the game plan with Browning. Maybe he's just a conservative quarterback. I figured they'd be slinging it around a little bit more when the game seemed lost, and you have those 2 weapons. But I do want to see them. I really hope that we start seeing the ball being taken away a little bit more. First, Flat Earth Trini, $5 said glad for a W, but that OL is atrocious. If we faced Burrow, this game would have been a lot closer. But yeah, I mean, it would have been closer for sure. Who knows? Maybe the Bengals win it. But I don't know. That's a bad product and team out there right now. It would have been closer, but I think Denver still probably wins this one handily. But we'll never know. It's counterfactual, but I think they would have.
Yeah, with the defense, I'm fully with you. I'd like to see them, take that step to be a great defense. Turnovers are the way to do it. There's also still some issues against the run that need to be ironed out. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect. Obviously, you can't keep every team to under 50 yards rushing or whatever, especially when you play great ones. But you just got to limit the impact of the runs. And, you want to get turnovers, start forcing 3rd and longs a little bit more often to where you're forcing the passing in the obvious situation where your pass rushers can continue to be dangerous and be the threat that they are. I mean, both Cooper and Benito are in the top 2 for get off time. Cooper is 0.69 seconds and Benito is tied at 7.72 seconds of get off. Force those 3rd and longs. And to do that, again, you just got to be a little bit better against the run. That and forcing turnovers, those are the 2 biggest issues I have with this defense. Penalties stink, but penalties have been such a point of emphasis this year. A lot of them have been for the refs, and I believe we have had more penalties called this year than ever before in the first 4 weeks. And I believe the closest one to where we've hit this number of penalties took 6 weeks to get to this amount of penalties that have been thrown. So 2 more games for it. Penalties have been flying out like crazy across the NFL. So it's a concern. Obviously, you got to do what you can, but there's been a lot of ticky-tacky calls thrown as well, and the refs are just being the refs.
Pretty annoying. Thank you, Flat Earth Trini, for this $5 super. We appreciate you. Before we wrap up the show here in the next 5-10 minutes or so, I hear the bath going on, and I said I'd get him down, so we'll get out of here pretty soon. But again, J.K. Dobbins, I think, is the story of this one for me, and the Broncos' offensive line and run game in general. His vision, his glide, his ability to manipulate defenders. There was one run where he pressed up against the line of scrimmage and paused and then kicked it out, I think, to the left when there was absolutely no hole there, and he made something out of nothing. And just the patience there, the vision, it's something we haven't really seen in Denver a bit. I know that Javonte Williams looks explosive right now with Dallas. Credit to them that they have some pretty good earth movers on that offensive line as well. They've invested a lot of first-round picks in that offensive line. And they brought over Arizona's offensive line coach who's done a good job. I can't think of his name right now, but he's a dude. He's a good one. But really just have appreciated the J.K. Dobbins show in general. One thing about the run game, I think that's the big J.K. Dobbins, we got to put a face on it. It's probably him. But in this game too, we talked about the offense having Atkins back. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention the 6 offensive line looks as well, bringing Palczewski in there. And I know a lot of people in the chat have been asking as well about the offense, have they found their identity? I don't know if that was necessarily an identity game because they had so many plays that it's they didn't lean one way or the other. Everything kind of worked. I guess the identity is a little bit more 2 tight end stuff with sprinkling in the 6 offensive linemen. But seeing that in this one was great. I don't know what the success rate was for them with 6 offensive linemen, but really good to see Palczewski in there. And I'm with Troy Aikman. That penalty was bogus. We don't need that flag. It didn't impact the play. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's things like that when I was talking about the refs being the refs, that's one of the examples for it, even though it's on the opposite side of the ball. Things are like that are happening on the defensive side too. But yeah, the run game, J.K. Dobbins, I was very questionable about him just because of what he did last year. But and this is a complete failure on my part, I didn't realize this was the first offseason where he wasn't rehabbing an injury, but prior to it. I thought he had one before. So that does change things a little bit when you can sit there and solely focus on not having to get healthy. You can actually focus on improving areas of your game and working on getting faster and getting, better weight on you, a better build on you, I guess would be the better way to put it. And those are things that he was able to do. You still don't see crazy bursts for him. He has enough bursts to get to the line quickly and get through the hole. Not going to be a guy that's going to, break off 80-yard touchdown runs. He just doesn't have the long speed for that. Nothing's going to change there. But the vision and so the quickness too, that is one thing that you didn't really see a whole lot with the Chargers or the Ravens previously. The quickness and you kind of touched on one of those plays where he just cut it all the way back. There was another one where he was pressing the line of scrimmage, and I think he was on the left side A gap, and he just did a quick jump cut to get through and picked up 8 or 9 yards, hitting the A gap, the right side A gap. And there was a couple of those runs that he had. And so those are things that are, great to see. The quickness are I completely underestimated that out of him. He is, as you said, the face of this game. There's a lot that's going on up front that's improved as well that helped him out. Running back is the most dependent position and to pick up yards and everything like that. And it's great to see everything going well. And it was, again, talked about Harvey a little bit. It was good to see him start to get things put together. And hopefully with Dobbins really stepping up to be that guy and being an efficient guy and not just as boom and bust as he was the first 3 weeks, hopefully that's able to settle Harvey down a little bit and help settle the coaching around Harvey, and as well as Dobbins passing things off to him to help him come around and be really that lightning to the power, I guess, of Dobbins and really create a 1-2 combo in the running game that Denver has not had for a long time. Yeah.
So before we get out of here, I did want to talk a little bit of Eagles, right? So I'm sure you guys will talk about that tomorrow, more so. But this is a big game for the Broncos. Obviously, it's probably their least important game of the season so far, given, it's not an AFC opponent. It's one that you're probably expected to lose. I'm honestly pretty shocked about the 3.5-point spread on that one. I thought it would have been closer to 5.5. So I guess I'm hammering the Broncos on that one. But do you have any early thoughts? I mean, if Broncos win this one, I think they're absolved for at least one of those losses. It's going to hurt more, obviously, in the end to have that Chargers loss because you're in direct competition with the Chargers where you're not really with the Eagles. But from getting a win that you didn't expect on the overall standings and just confidence in the team and respect for the team. Now, granted, who really cares too much about that, right? Like at the end of the day, you stack enough wins, you keep winning, and you just go as far as you can. But this is a big game as far as the national perspective and the team feeling themselves. And if they get this one, vibes are going to be riding really high heading to London to play
the Jets.
The Jets. Yes. Yep. London for the Jets. Yep.
Yeah, and as I said, the run game there is where that the focus needs to be coming into the set is where the Eagles have been most susceptible to giving up yardage. They run a lot of light boxes, which when you have the guys up front that they have, you can do that. And so the Broncos, I would love to see them come out and use those 2 tight end sets, use those big packages, and just really spam the run game, do what they can to keep the Eagles offense off the field. Because I think that they have such a favorable matchup across the board pretty much when it comes to their offense against the Broncos defense. So really ball control this game, run out the clock, time of possession. That is where the focus needs to be for in my opinion, for this game. And try to build off that to get some deep passes, get the explosive plays off of that, ease things into it. But focus needs to be the run game. It's why after the game last night, I wrote an article talking about how the Bengals game was the right time to start figuring out things with your run game because, not only is it the Eagles game and that's where they're susceptible at, you have a lot of traveling to Philadelphia, traveling to London, traveling back to Denver. That is a lot of travel, and relying on your run game can help ease the burden of that travel and the jet lag that you deal with. And there was a stat that I saw, and I can't remember everything now, but the passing offenses take a dramatic step back from traveling overseas, and then not that game specifically, but the game back home. So after flying overseas and then flying back, that first game after is when the passing offenses take such a big hit. So hopefully the Broncos with this run game, they're able to rely on it and build off of what they did against the Bengals.
Yeah, my biggest concern, I mean, honestly, I trust the Broncos defense more than the offense, but how this team wins is defense first. Yep. And I don't know. This was a game where finally you started to see the run defense wasn't elite, but I think that's a lot because the Bengals run offense is horrific. In that Chargers game, specifically the Colts game, Denver just could not buy a run stuff. Everything was like 4 yards, 8 yards. And if the Eagles are living there in 2nd and 2 constantly, 3rd and 1, you're not getting them off the field. So that's my early concern or thing I'm watching for this game is the early down run defense. If they can keep them where it has to be Jalen Hurts as a drop back passer, you have a chance. But if you let them play ahead of schedule with their offensive line, the size they have, the continuity they have, what is it? Stoutland? Is that their offensive line coach? Strickland?
Yes.
Stoutland,
I think.
One of the best, probably the best in the NFL. If you let them continuously play ahead of the sticks, it's going to be a long day for the Broncos. And they're lighter up front. I'm curious to see what Vance Joseph does to counteract that. If it's bodies and leaving yourself a little bit susceptible to the chunk plays, I'm letting Saquon Barkley potentially sneak out. I mean, it's a tough matchup. One of the few this season where I think on paper the Broncos defensive line might lose. I think they're better in the pass department, but I think the Eagles have a more of advantage in the run game than the Broncos do in the pass game.
Yeah, you touch on something about keeping them from getting ahead of the sticks because you do not want them in 3rd and short, 4th and short in those situations where you use the tush push. And DJ Jones, he had the quote of the week today, where he was asked about stopping the tush push, and he said, we just got to grab our nuts and hope and try our best to stop it. Like, this defensive line, they do not have the pieces to try and stop the tush push. So you got to do whatever you can to do that. Fortunately, they should be getting some reinforcements back. Cody W with the $5 super chat saying, hopefully Roach plays. We need his run stop ability. Malcolm Roach is eligible to come off injured reserve this week. And I can't remember who it was that kind of indicated that's the plan. It seems like that's the plan.
That'd be great.
And Mike Kliss actually also had a tweet about it. Adam Schefter tweeted off a thing of a list of guys who can come back, and Mike Kliss was like, add Malcolm Roach to that as well. And then Drew Sanders, he's another one where his downhill ability could potentially help in this if he's good to go. He's the one that seems a little bit less certain on. So got to do what you can. And as you said, you cannot let them get ahead of the sticks. You got to keep them behind, and you got to try to force the ball into Jalen Hurts' hands.
And we got Boot Boy 90 with our last one here before we wrap on up. Says, short week, gentlemen. Realistic expectations for Sunday. If we can keep it close or upset them, we really have a shot at the division in the postseason. Denver, if they beat this one, that gives them the confidence that they can probably go toe-to-toe with anybody in the league. Now, I don't think this Eagles team has been unbelievable this season, but they are undefeated and they are the reigning champ. That said, again, it is a week-to-week league. And for that, on the other side of, if Denver keeps it close or upset them, I also think if Denver goes in there and loses by 20, the season's not over by any means. The Broncos could still win the division and go on. So this is a tough matchup for the Broncos, and Eagles are a good team. So we'll see. It's just one game. It's their least important game so far, given all the standings and the ramifications of cross-conference play. But it would be a good one to get in the standings. And if you're sitting there at 3-2, you're feeling pretty good going against a pretty terrible Jets team. Now, granted, the travel kind of makes it a little bit of an equalizer. Then the Giants, feisty, but you could be sitting there at that point. What would you be? 5-2 after all that? So, one at a time, but you'd have a chance. And the schedule opens up a lot after this Eagles game, it feels like, on paper.
Yeah, on paper, this is probably the easiest time that they have. And I believe to help with the travel, I believe the Broncos are flying to London from Philly. I don't think they're coming back to Denver. I think they're just going straight over. So that can help as well. But yeah, this is such a big game for, get them in a good spot with the standings, get them to 3-2, but for the confidence of this team, because after this, you go to London for the New York Jets, the New York Giants at home, Dallas Cowboys, who that defense is by far the worst in the NFL. Then you have the Houston Texans, who have a terrible offensive line. Their defense isn't performing as expected, and they just look rough. And then you have the Las Vegas Raiders, whom they can't stop shooting themselves in the foot. So you have multiple weeks of easier games on paper that if you can go into Philadelphia and beat the reigning Super Bowl champions, you can sit there and we've talked about it. They're not the best right now. They have some issues. They have some weaknesses. That doesn't matter. They're still the reigning Super Bowl champions. They're still undefeated. This would be such a huge confidence game for these Broncos teams that it can carry over, and they could ride that high and stack victories together. So you can end up being 5-2, 7-2. And then you're taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Then you're taking on the Washington Commanders. Then you have a few weeks later after that, Green Bay Packers and Jacksonville Jaguars. This game can really set them up in a good position over the next, 5-6 weeks, 7 weeks with the easier schedule that they have, and help them for when the schedule gets tougher again after that point.
Yeah, and as Michael Ronquillo says, missing Greenlaw is going to hurt. Hopefully we can get him back, after the bye week or something. But I don't know. I don't know what to expect with him right now. It would be nice to have that physicality and speed and instincts in the middle of the defense and just a dog. You have Hufanga right now, but it'd be nice to have a little bit of a dog on that side. So, yeah, good game for the Broncos. Probably their most dominating win since that Falcons game, which was like week 11 last year or something, where it was like not close very quickly. A little bit of, sweaty palms. First drive, the Bengals march on the field. The Broncos go 3 and out. But all's right in the world. They won the war, even if they lost a couple earlier battles. That's fine. So appreciate it, Eric. Since I don't have the ability to clickety-clack on the buttons, I'll let you read us on out of here.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for joining in on this wonderful Tuesday night. You guys make sure you go over to youtube.com/@milehuddle, and you guys can become one of the members where we have awesome exclusive content like Kelberman's Corner and Broncos Book Club and some other stuff that are in the works here. You guys can also make sure you subscribe, like, and share. It only takes a matter of time. It is one way to help us with the algorithms that are ever changing on Facebook and YouTube that are ever being frustrating. And you guys also can go over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to after the fact, and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some gear, not swag. I hate saying swag every single month. Make sure you follow us on Instagram @MileHuddle with an underscore between mile and high and Huddle. And if you are able to do so, even though times are tough financially for a lot of people across the country and across the world, you can go to mhhmerch.com to get your gear on, or swag, as again, I hate saying swag, but you can get hats like this one, mugs, different hats for the different shows, all sorts of stuff that fits your fancy. You can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/MileHighHuddlePod and facebook.com/MileHighHuddle, and you can be part of the wonderful Facebook community that we've built up over the last 11 or 12 years, as well as get access to all of our written content. And also make sure you follow us on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Mile High Huddle, at whatever the show is, because I don't know, building the Broncos, and at MHH Pod and at Mile High Huddle to get access to all of our written content there as well.
Nailed it. No, although when you say I hate saying swag, every time you say it, 2 times as much.
I'm glad you get it.
Yeah. So appreciate everyone coming in here. Good times. Man, really good to be back in the winning things after 2 just gut-wrenching losses. Hopefully those will be in the rearview mirror soon enough. Also, it doesn't hurt to have the Rams and the Chargers both lose this week as well. So stick that in your you-know-what and smoke it. Appreciate all you guys. Have a great rest of your night. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. And as always, go Broncos.